Story 1 by Anthony Stone. I hesitated for a moment before recounting this chilling experience, as it still haunts my thoughts to this day. But if you're truly prepared for a disturbing true library horror story, then gather close, for what I'm about to share is not for the faint of heart. Several years ago, I found myself engrossed in a research project that led me to the depths of an old, decrepit library tucked away in a forgotten corner of town. The library, its grandeur faded by time, seemed like the perfect place to seek out hidden knowledge. Little did I know the darkness that lurked within those ancient walls. As I entered the library, an unsettling silence greeted me. The air hung heavy with the scent of mildew and decay. Dust-covered shelves lined the dimly lit aisles, the books upon them seemingly untouched for years. I brushed off a layer of grime from a nearby table and began my search, hoping to uncover the information I sought. As the hours wore on, I became acutely aware of a pervasive sense of unease. Whispers, barely audible, echoed through the aisles, as if the library itself spoke in hushed tones. At first, I dismissed them as figments of my imagination, a byproduct of exhaustion and the library's eerie atmosphere. But the whispers grew more distinct, their words laced with an otherworldly quality. Unable to resist their pull, I followed the ethereal voices, my footsteps echoing through the desolate corridors. They led me to a secluded section, hidden behind a heavy curtain of cobwebs. I gingerly pushed aside the strands, revealing a room that had been concealed from mortal eyes for untold years. Inside, the atmosphere turned frigid, and a single, flickering candle provided the only source of light. The walls were adorned with cryptic symbols and strange diagrams, their meaning lost to time. Books with faded covers lined the shelves, their pages stained with a dark substance that resembled dried blood. A sense of dread washed over me, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I plucked a book from the shelf, and as my fingers grazed its surface, an agonized scream erupted from within its pages. Startled, I dropped the book, its scream abruptly silenced as it hit the floor. The other books on the shelves began to tremble, as if stirred by some unseen force. They flew open, their pages flipping with violent intensity. Words spilled forth, forming a cacophony of disjointed whispers that assaulted my ears. It felt as though the very essence of the library was alive, writhing and seething in a malevolent dance. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the flickering candle, plunging the room into darkness. Panic consumed me as I stumbled through the black void, desperate to escape the clutches of this eldritch place. I tripped over unseen obstacles, crashing into shelves, the anguished whispers growing louder with each passing second. Finally, I burst through the library doors, gasping for air as the light of day embraced me. As I turned back to look upon the building, it stood there, a sinister monument to the horrors I had experienced. And within its walls, I knew that knowledge and darkness intertwined, forever beckoning to the unsuspecting souls who dared to enter. Since that day, I have never set foot in a library without a sense of trepidation. The memory of those haunting whispers and the twisted secrets they held still haunt my dreams. And as I caution you with these words, remember, there are realms of knowledge that should remain undisturbed, for once you open the door, you may find yourself trapped in a nightmare from which there is no escape. Story 2 by Gregory Stone. As a devoted book lover, I often find solace in the serene environment of my local library. It was a haven where I could immerse myself in the written word, surrounded by the faint scent of aging paper and the gentle rustling of pages. However, a particular incident forever shattered my perception of that peaceful sanctuary. It was a gloomy winter evening when I decided to visit the library. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation as I stepped through the grand entrance. The place appeared deserted, with only a few scattered individuals engrossed in their own literary realms. I ventured deeper into the maze of towering bookshelves, each filled with forgotten knowledge and untold stories. As I wandered aimlessly, my attention was caught by a dim light flickering in a remote corner of the library. Curiosity piqued, I followed the erratic glow, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. The further I ventured, the colder the air became, and an unnerving stillness settled around me like a suffocating cloak. Eventually, I arrived at an isolated section of the library, a place where ancient tomes and forbidden knowledge resided. The flickering light emanated from a solitary candle atop a dusty wooden desk, around which were strewn open books with disheveled pages. The room seemed frozen in time, untouched by human presence for centuries. Unable to resist the allure of these enigmatic books, I cautiously reached out to examine one of them. The moment my fingertips brushed against its worn cover, a chill ran down my spine, and a haunting whisper echoed through the air. Startled, I withdrew my hand, but a force seemed to compel me to return. Against my better judgment, I flipped open the book, and an ethereal wind whispered through the pages, as if whispering ancient secrets in my ear. The words on those pages began to twist and contort, forming grotesque images that seared into my mind. Unholy incantations danced across the parchment, filling the room with an otherworldly presence. Panic gripped me, but my legs refused to move, as if rooted to the spot by an unseen malevolence. As the room plunged into darkness, a chilling laughter pierced the silence. Shadows twisted and writhed, elongating into grotesque figures that loomed menacingly around me. I could feel their malevolent gaze upon me, cold and unrelenting. Terrified, I screamed, desperately hoping for someone to rescue me from this nightmarish ordeal. Suddenly, the library sprang back to life, bathed in its usual warm glow. The candles burned brightly, and the books rested peacefully on their shelves. Confused and trembling, I stumbled out of that cursed corner, leaving the haunted books behind. To this day, I can't forget the horrors I witnessed in that forsaken corner of the library. It serves as a chilling reminder that even the most serene places can conceal unspeakable darkness, waiting to ensnare unsuspecting souls. I now approach libraries with a mix of reverence and trepidation, forever haunted by the sinister secrets that lurk within their hallowed halls. Story 3 by Mate Kurt. I've always loved books, and working at the local library was a dream come true. It was a small, quiet place with rows upon rows of books, each holding a story waiting to be discovered. But there was one incident that forever changed my perception of the library, a disturbing encounter that still haunts me to this day. It was a cold winter evening, and the library was almost empty. I was busy organizing books when a man entered, wearing a tattered overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his face. His presence sent a shiver down my spine, but I dismissed it as a mere product of my imagination. The man walked slowly through the aisles, seemingly lost in his own world. I watched him from a distance, noticing how he occasionally ran his fingers across the book spines, as if searching for something specific. Unease settled in the pit of my stomach, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As I continued my work, the library's atmosphere changed. The air grew heavy, and a strange silence enveloped the entire building. I glanced around, realizing that the other patrons had vanished without a trace. Panic started to rise within me, but I tried to maintain my composure. I focused on the man, who was now standing in front of a bookshelf at the far end of the library. He reached out, plucked a thick, leather-bound book from the shelf, and held it in his hands. The spine was worn, its title barely visible. Curiosity and concern got the better of me, and I approached him cautiously. "Can I help you find something?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The man's head tilted slowly, revealing a face hidden by shadows. His eyes, void of any life or emotion, pierced through me. Without uttering a single word, he extended his hand, offering me the book. Against my better judgment, I reached out and took the book from him. As soon as my fingers made contact with the worn cover, a jolt of energy surged through my body, freezing me in place. The room spun around me, the shelves and books blending into a blur of darkness. When the disorienting sensation subsided, I found myself in a vast, desolate library. The walls were lined with ancient tomes, their pages decaying and whispering secrets lost to time. Fear washed over me, and I realized I had been transported to a realm beyond reality. As I desperately searched for an exit, a voice echoed through the emptiness, chilling me to the bone. "You've stumbled into the forbidden realm of forgotten stories," it hissed, each word dripping with malevolence. "Now, you shall join the countless others who dared to tread here." I ran through the endless rows of books, their titles leering at me, as if mocking my futile attempts to escape. Shadows danced and twisted, contorting into grotesque shapes that taunted my sanity. I could feel the presence of countless lost souls, trapped in this cursed place for eternity. Just as I thought all hope was lost, I spotted a faint glimmer of light emanating from a distant corner of the library. Summoning the last ounce of strength within me, I sprinted towards it, the voices of the damned echoing in my ears. As I reached the light, the room spun once again, and I found myself back in the familiar library, gasping for air. The man had vanished, leaving behind only the book I had foolishly accepted. Trembling, I hurriedly placed it back on the shelf, hoping to forget the horrors I had witnessed. Since that day, the library has never been the same for me. I still work there, but the once beloved shelves now hold a sense of unease. I can't help but wonder if there are other forbidden realms hidden within the books, waiting to ensnare unsuspecting souls like me. Please remember that this is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. Real-life library experiences are generally safe and enjoyable. Story 4 by Brad Brook. I remember that night at the library like it was yesterday. It was late, the moon was high in the sky, and I was one of the few souls wandering the aisles of books. The silence was only broken by the occasional sound of pages being turned or the soft shuffle of footsteps. Little did I know that night would become one of the most disturbing experiences of my life. I was engrossed in a book when I noticed a man sitting at a nearby table. He had disheveled hair and an intense look in his eyes. Something about him made me uneasy, but I brushed it off as mere paranoia. I continued reading, trying to ignore his presence. After a while, I became aware of a faint whispering sound. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but as the whispers grew louder, I couldn't ignore them any longer. I looked around, trying to locate the source of the eerie noise. To my horror, I realized that the whispers were coming from the man sitting at the table. His lips were moving, as if engaged in a heated conversation with an invisible entity. Curiosity mixed with fear compelled me to approach him cautiously. "Excuse me," I said, my voice quivering. "Are you okay?" The man turned his head slowly, his eyes locking onto mine. There was a disturbing intensity in his gaze that sent shivers down my spine. "Can't you hear them?" he replied in a hushed tone, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and terror. "The voices. They won't stop. They're everywhere." I felt a chill run down my spine as I listened to his words. It was clear that something was seriously wrong with this man. I glanced around, hoping someone else would intervene, but the library remained eerily deserted. "Sir, maybe you should seek help," I suggested, my voice trembling, his face twisted into a manic grin. "Help? No one can help me now. They followed me here, into the books. They speak to me, taunting, threatening." I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The man's words were becoming more and more incoherent, and I feared for my own safety. I needed to find a way out of this unsettling situation. As I turned to make my escape, a loud crash echoed through the library. I spun around, my eyes widening in terror. Rows upon rows of books tumbled from the shelves, scattering across the floor like fallen soldiers. The man burst into maniacal laughter, his voice blending with the cacophony of crashing books. I ran towards the library exit, my mind racing with fear and confusion. The whispers and laughter seemed to follow me, echoing through the corridors as I sprinted towards freedom. Finally, I burst through the library doors, gasping for breath. I glanced back, half expecting to see the men chasing after me, but the library stood silent and still. It was as if the entire nightmarish episode had never happened. To this day, I can't shake off the disturbing memory of that library horror. The voices, the crashing books, and the haunted man forever etched in my mind. Libraries, once a place of solace and knowledge, now hold an eerie aura that sends shivers down my spine whenever I step foot in one.